from Youngsville Elementary School. This is 5th grade. This is George Haycraft. I'm Tara Smith, Lacey Branham, and Kelly Mayer. Kelly and I team teach together, and Lacey and George team teach together. Our focus is on real-world reading, which is a PLC that 5th grade teachers are doing this year.
Yeah, but before we show you these slides, I'd like to say that with my PLC, we decided to address the need of more nonfiction practice for students based upon the recent trend in the EOGs going to 60% or so of nonfiction. And students struggle with it a lot, and there's never enough practice. I think all of you understand, and all of you seen the difficulty level and how much more difficult the EOG's gotten in the last few years. And it really threw me. I've seen some of the way I'm like, oh, my head is spinning. After looking at it, because I'm like, I've never seen this before. How can I expect them to get it if I've never given them this practice? And so our group is real world reading, and based on previous years' EOG scores, benchmark scores, but more on the EOGs and what's in class. And in class assessments, we noticed a deficiency in nonfiction reading selections, especially in the areas using maps, charts, graphs, brochures, any kind of graphic. Whenever they had to use more than one, not just reading, but had to use a chart or a graph, anytime it was 2 or more to use, it was difficult for them. And our PLC this year focuses on real-world reading, using high-order thinking questions based on Bloom's taxonomy and Barzano's question stamps. In order to help increase student achievement in the area of nonfiction, we created multiple choice questions based on brochures, maps, and schedules that we have gathered. With one that we have a copy of the Twitsy Railroad brochure, I thought would be, and keep in mind that these brochures are written for adults. So, you know, our thinking was, well, if you let a child read a brochure that's meant for an adult, you can't get much better practice than that. Again, these weren't meant for 10-year-olds to scour through to try to figure out how much it's going to cost them to go, because that's not something normally they would do. When we made the questions originally, I believe Tweetsy had, I think there were 9 questions. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, 8 or 9 or something in the neck of the woods. We had, and all the classes do the assignments. We found that 70% scored around 80% approximately, which is actually fairly good. But this was our initial one, one of the first ones we did. 30% scored 64% or below. Again, not too horrible if you've got to look at the source. The most frequently missed questions involve extra mathematical computation. And what that is they had to actually look at a question where it may have said, well, this age group has to pay a certain amount of dollars to get into the park. But there were some tricks there, because they had a statement said that if you're like a golden horseshoe member or something like that, it was, you know, like if you pay more money, you get in free on certain days. So it could be confusing. They actually had to use deduction and logic to figure it out. It wasn't just a who, what, where, when question. They also had trouble, surprisingly, sometimes just finding something in detail right in the passage. It was right there in black and white. They just couldn't find it. And you can see why as you're looking at this. This brochure originally had, you know, it was 4 panels on each side. And you can see there's a lot going on. You have to visualize they had the one in color. So when you see all this, it hits them a lot. You know, it's kind of confusing, I think, to most. Thank you.
So we're going to do a group activity. I think you have all the materials you need for it.
Questions 1 through 3 already that we gave you, and then we're just going to have you come up with 1 or 2 multiple choice questions. And Lacey's giving you something that we found. Where was it from?
Brigham Young
University. and it's how to make good multiple choice questions. They're examples of ones that aren't as useful, and there are ones that are better. So that'll give you some ideas. And then we'll just share your questions, one or two people, after you have time to come up with some. We've also listed the Bloom's taxonomy on the question page.
As she's passing these out, I would like to say that as we've been working with these brochures, our questions have gotten progressively harder. And so what we found with our PLC is that the student percentages have gone down lately. The last activity we did was a rafting company out of Hot Springs. And of course, if any of you are interested, I brought some brochures we collected for different sites. And we've also got questions for many of them. But it is an ongoing process for us in our PLC group.
We'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll just call on the group, questions.
We need to make 3 questions.
Now, can you pause this thing? Yes. I will. Yes. Just stop. You just stop. I think you can actually merge them all together. Can I?
There you go.
Stop it now.
What's that?
You can merge them all. All right, so Lisa's going to have